you are a customer experience professional who wants to deliver a rock star customer experience to your customers, then stay tuned, because we are speaking to a real life legit rock star today, Jon Wolske, who is going to be sharing the success secrets from Zappos.
You're watching ROCKSTAR CX live.
Okay, and we are live. So I am James Dodkins, and my mission is to help create customer experience rock stars in companies and help them deliver rockstar customer experience to as many customers as possible. And that is why I interview the best customer experience rock stars from all around the world, in the hope that we can get some insights into really together how we can deliver that rockstar customer experience. So some of you guys might know out there that I used to be a real life, actual, genuine rock star. Used to be. But today we've got somebody who still is a genuine, real life, actual rock star, and that is Jon Wolske. And Jon Wolske is going to be sharing with us some of the customer success secrets that he learned while he worked at Zappos. Now, number one, I say Zappos funny because I'm British. Deal with it. Number two, if you don't know who Zappos are, then I don't know where you've been, but Zappos are one of the world's most customer-centric companies. They deliver some of the world's best customer service and arguably have one of the world's best cultures. Look, if you think that this might be interesting, maybe some of your friends, some of your family, some of your colleagues are going to think it's interesting to do. So give us a share and help us spread the love.
You're watching ROCKSTAR CX live.
Today, our
customer experience rockstar
is Jon Wolske. Okay. Jon is a culture evangelist as well as a badass rock star. He is, let me get this right, he is a passionate purveyor of purpose and perspective. So basically, he's a guy that loves to inspire change. Customer service has been a really big part of Jon's life from his very first job, but learning about organizational service and culture and how it really shapes a brand kind of happened as a happy accident when he took a job at Zappos.com. And with Zappos, he got to travel the world and speak on the subject of culture. And really, he got to see things change around him every single day. So just before we speak to Jon, I want to say a massive thank you to
www.rockstar.cx.
That is www.rockstar.cx. So for customer experience improvement consultancy and training, for customer-centric culture transformation, and for the ultimate rockstar team building experience, go to www.rockstar.cx. So the time has come. I feel like I need a new button for that one. I want to say a massive welcome to Jon Wolske. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. So, as I mentioned earlier, I used to be a real life, genuine, legit rock star. But you actually are currently still a real life, genuine, legit rock star. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I've been playing in bands since I was 16 years old, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am now. But just music is in my blood. I just can't go without doing it. So I've got a project right now called Miss the Messenger, and it's all the stuff that I'm writing. So it's really me putting together this band, and but real classic rock influences. So like Bad Company, Creedence Clearwater Revival, little Zeppelin, little Leonard Skinner, but just definitely leaning on the rock and roll side of things.
Okay, so some pretty good influences there. So other than the guys that you've just mentioned, what's the sort of music that you're into?
Well, I listen to everything. So in my other life, I work in production, doing shows and concerts, and on the technical side of setting up audio systems. So you can't really be biased in that world because you have to mix everything. So I really do kind of enjoy funk and gospel and country, and like you can kind of go all around the map, and there's going to be something there that I do like. I don't listen to a ton of today's rap music. But besides that, I mean, really, as long as it makes you feel good, it's good music.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. So look, doing that and what you did at Zappos seems mega different. So like, tell us a little bit more about how you started at Zappos and then how you progressed to be the culture evangelist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll even tie it in, if you stick on the line, that they aren't that different after all. So I started working at Zappos because working in production, I was working on call. I was a freelance audio technician, and that was really good money when the gigs were there. It was not offering health insurance. And I reached a certain age in my life where I thought I should probably do the right thing for my family and get health insurance. So that was really my main motivator of getting away from production. And I ended up finding Zappos really kind of by mistake, or not by mistake. The universe kept telling me that I should go there, and I kept ignoring it for about 6 months. It just kept seeing the signs for this call center job, and I'd worked in a call center before, and it was awful. So I ignored the signs, and finally I said, let me check this place out. And I went to a job fair that they held on the campus, and was blown away, and figured if 1/10 of what they said was true about how they do business at Zappos, it was going to be way better than any other place I'd ever worked. So I started off in customer service as a call center representative, or what Zappos calls a customer loyalty team member, and just really learned that everything they said was absolutely true, and that my job was to say, how can I help you today? And to understand who my customer was, to understand where they are coming from. And again, we're talking about shoes at Zappos, right? So it's not life-threatening, it's not huge, big problems, but you are on your feet all day. And so you can make a huge difference by impacting that customer by saying, have you checked out this type of product with this type of technology or design? And it'll actually make your life better. But where they tie in together is that production work is actually a customer service job. It's a customer service job with thousands of customers every time that you do a show. You've got the client, you've got obviously your company, you've got your team that you're leading, and you've got all the people that are sitting in the seats there for a great experience. And so I think really actually the production world could probably hear this message more, but is a customer service job with technical skills to back it up. Whereas at Zappos, it was a customer service company with great people to back it up.
Okay, so you mentioned about the call center, and they had a different name for it. What was it? A loyalty, customer loyalty?
Customer loyalty team, or CLT, yeah.
Okay, so what's the difference?
I think it's just the way that we talk about things. I think language is huge, and I'll write about that. It's going to be a subsection in the book I'm writing, but the language we use, I think, sets up people's expectations. And if you work in customer service or a customer service department, we all kind of make assumptions when we go to a business and we have to go to the customer service counter. And we get people who are fighting and just holding policy in their hand as we can't do anything for you because of policy. And there's not really a service aspect when we think about the word customer service. So instead of calling it customer service, let's call it the customer loyalty team. And that was also backed up by some data. And Zappos was really good at looking at their data, looking at their customers' patterns. And when you give a customer a great experience, right, when you give them good customer service, they become a loyal customer. They will come back and shop with you more frequently. They'll tell their friends and family about the experience. So they actually become your word of mouth marketing. And so I think it really spins it up that when you start working in the customer loyalty team at Zappos, you aren't here to do customer service. You're here to make loyal customers, and the mindset is different. And then, of course, the tools that you're given are there for you. But I think we set it up pretty good. And I'll still slip and say we when I talk about Zappos, because I was there for 10 years. But I think they do such a good job of setting it up with, this is what we're all about.
Okay, so I mean, it's quite obvious that customer success and building that relationship is integral to the culture at Zappos. And of course, you ended up being the culture evangelist. Now, a lot of people out there are probably thinking, "Wow, that's really cool. I'd like to be a culture evangelist." Now, what I'm thinking is, "Wow, that's really cool. What is a culture evangelist?" So, can you help me out a little bit with that one?
A culture evangelist is whatever you want it to be, James. It's that kind of video chat. No. So So a culture evangelist, I mean, really the idea came from, and I stole the name, to be honest. I'll give credit where credit is due. I stole the name from my manager who was calling himself that before he left Zappos. And then when I moved in from where I was, which was, I built a tour process and tour experience of the Zappos campus, to traveling and giving speeches, I thought that title just captured what we do. So instead of being a spokesperson or, there's all sorts of other names you could give, the figurehead or whatever, I believe that culture is really what we're talking about. It's not like just talk about Zappos. That's going to be an after effect when I go to speak. You're going to hear about Zappos and go, man, that sounds pretty cool. What I want you to take from this is the approach to culture, the approach to managing people or not managing people, but giving people an opportunity. And really, and then the evangelist, I believe, also is kind of captures the idea that I'm going to spread a message. Right. So I'm not just going out to advocate for a brand or to market for a brand, but to spread this message that the world can actually be a better place.
Well, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And so it's obvious that Zappos have got a really large focus on their culture, but other companies out there don't really have such a large focus on their culture. In your experience and in your opinion, what is so important about culture?
Well, it's nothing new. Culture really is at the heart of it. The values, the attitudes, the feelings, the beliefs that a group have together that make them who they are. You have to put that all together with purpose, because you can have a great group of people, but if you don't have a purpose why you do what you do, then you just have a great group of people hanging out and not getting stuff done. So you focus in on that purpose, and that purpose at Zappos is to live and deliver wow. It is great experiences across the board. Then the culture really becomes something that you can understand. I believe also that where people confuse culture with what you can read on all the great sites that are out there, is that it's not the stuff. And Zappos famously has a very interesting campus with a lot of fun stuff, but that's not culture. We didn't create culture at Zappos by putting in fun stuff. We got to a better understanding of who the company is, the people that make up the company, who we are, and then how do we put all that together with the purpose of why we're here to do what we're doing. And then you have this culture that can be a living, breathing thing that people can actually really commit to. They can really hold on to. They can really protect. And I think that a lot of businesses that start a culture initiative from this high level of what is culture, it's whatever these experts have said, right? And then they just try to do what other people have done because that's what the experts say they've done. They end up getting culture as a project. It ends up being a project that comes from the top and flows downhill. And we all know what flows downhill. It's not snowballs. And then what happens with that project? It dies like so many other projects. And then when things get really bad in the culture, whether it's, like recent examples of rideshare companies having horribly misogynistic cultures and things like that, that all rolled down from the top of the hill because it was allowed to. And so if you get a real understanding that culture actually comes from this level down here, what is supporting the company and the brand and making it who you are? And that's the people. That's the people that clean the conference rooms after everybody else leaves for the day, doing their job well because it helps support the work of the day. And then when people come in and they support each other and you don't have teams fighting against each other, and you understand that if I do my part in this little section over here, I'm going to help this section over here, and ultimately we're going to help the company achieve its goal. That's what culture is. So culture is so much bigger than, I can give you my slide of my, my catchphrase or whatever. But I think it's so much more than that. It's people understanding we are here for something so much bigger than ourselves. And sure, it's work. And be honest, James, if you didn't have to work to make a paycheck to pay the bills, would you work?
No comment.
Right, exactly. It's a hard question to answer. But most of us, if we were that well off that we just absolutely didn't have to work, we would dawdle in some things. We would have hobbies, right? We'd get the band back together for sure. But if you didn't have to work, would you really? And so when you enjoy going into a place that you are so aligned with why they do what they do, that it doesn't feel like I have to go into work. And I'll tell you, I never went in to the office on a Monday at Zappos and went, oh, it's a Monday. And I see on Facebook, everybody always complains on Sunday night about the impending doom of Monday morning. And it's like, I feel really sorry. You have this awful feeling when you go into work. Why do you go into work? Why do you go into that place? Why do you deal with that? And if people really got the culture idea right, and it's a big picture idea, people would love Mondays.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, isn't it? Because we spend a lot of our lives at work, and so really, why don't more companies make work a nice place to be? Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, it's business. Like, I think the whole reason that it is the way that it is now is that you start with these great things and you start with the right focus, and you have managers who want to encourage their people. And then you realize that if we have 1,000 people in the company and they're all spending 5 minutes a day doing non-work stuff that we're letting them do, that's 5,000 minutes a day. And then you go to the payroll department and you go, on average, how much do we pay these people? Multiply that minute rate by 5,000, and you go, every day we're spending this much money? And somebody puts their foot down and says, we can't do that. This is a business. We're here to make money. And so eventually you start to chip away. You start to chip away at the freedoms that you give people. And I'm not talking about the free lunch. Like, if you're going to give a free lunch, give a free lunch, you know. But you start chipping away at even the small things. And then chit-chat between cubes in the office. Or memos or texts that go out that aren't necessarily about business today start getting squashed. And then it becomes less like a social construct and more like, well, like a place where slaves go. And that's what's happened, is because we look at the bottom line, and when you really weigh the cost, that freedom to let people be people costs a lot of money. And somebody will almost always put their foot down, and we stop allowing that freedom. And then we get what we've got today.
I see what. So what's the argument against that thinking?
Well, you have to spend a little money to make a little money, right? So when you invest in people, when you invest in giving people that 5 minutes a day, right? I'm not saying that 5 minutes a day is perfect, but just from the example. So you give the people the freedom to interact with each other, to make real friends in the office, to have social things going on during your workday. And the people that are doing the work are actually going to do better work. They're going to be inspired to do more work for you. They're going to work longer for you. And your brand is going to overall have a better perception. So you spend that money, you invest in your people, and they are going to give it back. You're going to see a return. You might not see it tomorrow. You might not see it in 1 year's time. But when you look at the 10-year plan, that investment is going to pay off.
Okay, so I mean, like, it's an interesting one, really, isn't it? Because there's lots of companies that say, "Oh, we need to get a culture." You know, you kind of everybody's got a culture. It's just yours is probably crappy if you're thinking that way. And I think it's interesting something you said earlier about culture isn't a project, and that's really enlightening. It shouldn't necessarily be a project. It should be something that maybe organically grows. And from what I understand with Zappos, your culture really organically grew from your set of core values. Correct me if I'm wrong. So why do you think it's important for a business to have a set of core values really as the backbone that their culture is built on?
As you said, it's organic. It needs to grow organically. Businesses grow organically, right? You have one or two people who get an idea. They get some funding, whether it's themselves or somebody else. They start the idea and they see if it actually works. When it actually works, they start to build on that. And then you get these 2 people that become 10 people, that become 20 people. If you've been hiring people who understand why you're there to do what you do, and so purpose, again, is at the center of absolutely every bit of this. If you understand why the company even exists, and you're on board with that, and you come in and you become 20 and you become 200, and people understand why you're doing what you're doing, and it's part of your language, then your culture is going to very organically grow into a culture that is for this purpose. And I think that's what happened with Zappos. They talked very openly about being a customer service company. Everybody knew that Tony Hsieh, the CEO, didn't want a company that just became another corporate unit like his last company. So there was also that aspect. And so as it grows organically and you bring in more people, And I wouldn't do it when you have 2 people, maybe when you're the startup, but maybe when you get into a dozen or so people, start asking the question, who are we now? Who are we really? So we know why we started. We know why we do what we do. Who are we as the people that are making this happen for the company, for each other, for our customers? And that who question is culture, right? So you don't bring in one of those high-priced consultants who has a great list of words to choose from, right? Oh, you want to do culture? Great. We've got this list. You can pick from these options here. These are all tried and true. They work great, right? Don't you love integrity? Isn't integrity awesome?
Mm.
But what's the problem with that? Integrity itself is a concept. If you ask 1,000 people what is integrity, you get the general idea of doing the right thing, right? But what is doing the right thing? How, if I call out integrity as a core value for my company, how do I coach to integrity? How do I give feedback, negative feedback because of integrity? How do I maybe even possibly go through termination because of integrity? When in business, you might have different knowledge than I have, and so your decision would be different. So if I made the best decision possible given my information and knowledge, then I feel like I did that with integrity. Just because you have different or more knowledge doesn't mean that I don't have integrity. So that's a big one that I see a lot of big companies choose. They want it as a core value. They want it on the wall. Here's the thing with integrity. There's the little 5-second soundbite for you. People trust your business to do business with integrity, period. You shouldn't have to tell them, oh, by the way, we're going to do this with integrity. Trust is another one. Yeah, I'm going to trust you to do what I'm paying you to do. So the who question is really, who are we then, the people that make this organization tick? What values, what behaviors and expectations are there in these people right now that we can say absolutely, without a doubt, this is us, and put a stamp on it, commit to living that moving forward?
Yeah, I suppose it's, if you have to, it's that old, the lady doth protest too much, or whatever the saying is. If you have to tell, by the way, we've got lots of integrity, that should really be a red flag right away. So hang on a second, why do they feel that they need to ram that down my throat? Why are they telling me that? So what's your advice on trying to make values real for people in the organization?
Take your time. So defining a core value, a structure, or a culture isn't easy, right? Even when it's really good, it's not easy. Take the Zappos example again. They spent a year. Once Tony Hsieh, the CEO, said we have to define the core values, they spent a year saying, okay, from everybody in the company, who are we really? What values, what behaviors make us who we are? And then saying, okay, we've got this great list of hundreds of values. That's too many. Are there themes? And they put things together with the commonalities. And they said, here are 37 resounding values and themes. Are we going in the right direction? So even in this process, the group that was in charge took the time to say, okay, now let's make sure we're aligned with getting aligned. And then after they got that okay, that acceptance and buy-in from everybody, that's when they said, we're going to pare this down to 10 core values. Not that 10's a perfect number, but from 37, it's a lot more actionable and memorable. You can actually commit to 10 values. And by the way, here's the list we've come up with from all of your input. And then they literally got everybody to sign a document that says that I understand my job is or this culture, these values and behaviors are as important as my job performance. And that's the commitment part. So there's 2 steps to culture. Define it. It's not easy, right? You have to be very careful. You have to listen to everybody's input. Not that everybody's input's going to end up on the list. Then you have to absolutely commit to it. You have to commit to the moment that you have to make a decision, and you could follow these core values or not, but it would be easier. You stop that commitment. And it's the moment that you do that, you take that step and you say, we're going to make this decision even though it seems to go against these new values. You've just told everybody that the list is worth nothing. You have to absolutely commit. But ask the people. Ask them general questions. Don't say, okay, we're trying to narrow down our culture and core values. What do you think our values are? And you can do that, but ask people, why do you come into work every day? If you're in a financial firm, there are 20 financial firms in this town. Why do you come into this one? Why have you stuck with us for so long? What makes this company your company? And then if you don't get a lot of "this is my company," then you've obviously got sort of bigger problems. But what you're going to find is that people are going to tell you already what your brand is about. And then when you get the input of what we want to be, right, the values that we have, and you combine it with the understanding of who we are already, that's a truer picture of who you are than putting the aspiration on the wall, trying to tell the world this is who we are, and then trying to make your company become that.
I think the thing that gets me thinking about that is what you were saying around alignment. So the alignment has got to be a very integral part of this, because if you are saying that, well, one of our values is X, but in everything else you do Y, then of course that's going to be difficult for people, because of course they're going to say, well, yeah, you're saying one thing but doing another, and of course they're, I'm imagining, not going to be on board with that then. So the alignment of the customer services and experience and the processes and the systems and the hiring and the firing and the way that you reward people, how difficult is it to get that sort of 100% alignment in a company to your values and your culture?
100% is probably going to be next to impossible, right? So if you shoot for 99.8, I believe that also when you include everybody in the process and give them a chance to give their voice, with the understanding that we're not just going to take everything that James has said and put it into this list. It's going to be considered with the hundreds or thousands of other people in this company, but give people the chance to give their voice. And I really believe that checkup in the middle to say, here's where we started, here's the long list, here's what we've come up with as the really resounding important parts, and getting people a chance, again, to have their voice to say, but you missed this one, and I really feel it's really important. And then when you take that consideration of everybody's big wish list or kind of thoughts into this makes sense on a smaller scale for us, and you get to that end point, you shouldn't have people going, this isn't me, this isn't who we are. And if you do, and like I said, because 100% is going to be very hard, that is a great time to mutually separate on good terms. Because if you're going to commit to moving forward this way, everybody has to commit as well. Those behaviors need to be in place, and you can't allow for the exception of that one person because they've been here for 12 years. This is who we are. This is our commitment. This is our statement moving forward. And so that's the other conversation that these companies need to have, that any organization needs to have when you're talking about culture, is you need to look at those people that are toxic and very bad for the culture, probably the ones who are actually complaining about it the most as well. You need to find out if there's a way to do that thank you for your service, but this is who we are moving forward, and make that separation. Otherwise, you're going to be like a hamster spinning in its wheel, never going anywhere, but trying.
I think that sums it up perfectly. That the people that don't exemplify your culture will ultimately weaken it. So I'm going to take a little look down here. We've got a comment from Steve Towers, and he's saying this should be obligatory viewing for everyone who deals with customers, and that is everybody. So Steve obviously understands how culture will eventually affect the customer experience. So for people out there that don't necessarily know that, how would you explain to them how culture directly affects customer experience?
Well, I mean, I think it depends what kind of stage I'm on. Right? Do I have large buckets? Because if you just pour one large bucket into a smaller bucket, what do you get? You get the same substance that was in that large bucket in the smaller bucket. In business, most of the time, the customer service team is viewed as that smaller bucket. Their view is that necessary evil. Oftentimes, they're viewed by the finance team as a cost center. So there's not a positive business outlook for that department. But what you pour into that department is ultimately what you have there. So my very first job in Las Vegas, when I moved to Las Vegas back in 2003, was at a call center, and it was doing hard sell scripted sales for a product that you didn't want and you really couldn't afford, but we were going to sell it to you. And we literally hired anybody off the street who was eligible for hire in the US and could read a script. And I know that for a fact because I worked in HR doing hiring some days. And the management was all just simply yelling whatever the order was from the owners and the CEO. When numbers were bad and the owners did come in, which was always a bad thing. So there's just another thing. If your owners come into the building and people start freaking out, a good sign the culture is just awful. They proceeded to just essentially rip us a new one for not hitting our numbers as a way to motivate us. So guess what happened when we went back to the floor and got on the phone trying to sell and resell customers? We didn't sell any better than we did before. We probably sold worse because essentially we were told from the top, it doesn't matter. You're replaceable. I mean, that's literally the message they gave us was, numbers are bad. We don't need you. You're replaceable. And so we got back to the floor, and guess what? Numbers didn't turn around, right? In that case, a lot of people did turn over. So what you pour into the service department and mentality is what you will get out of it. If you understand that they're important, if you use language in the other departments of the company that explain how important the service team is, it becomes important. The tech needs are important. So then if the tech team understands that they're a part of delivering this great customer experience, they're a part of something bigger than the tech work that they do, they become involved in and invested in the customer experience. Some of the best innovations that Zappos ever made in their system, which was they built themselves completely, was every Christmas season, everybody in the company gets back on the phones and does 10 hours of time with customers on the phones to help out with the holiday season. And after we do holiday help time is when you would see somebody from the tech team, the programming team, say, why is this happening this way? We could write it better. We could make it better. And so I think what happens in a lot of companies is customer service is the small bucket, and it just gets dumped on with whatever it gets. But if you put everybody into that bucket, and it becomes essentially what this company is about. If you touch the customer service aspect, if you touch the process that they use, if you touch the website that customers have to use, you need to understand that you are part of that customer's experience. And so when we get on the same page and understand that customer service isn't what one part of this company does, and like you even mentioned in the comment, everybody does customer service. If people get an understanding here of who their customer is, because it can be an internal customer. I serve this product to this team that uses it for this purpose, whether it's beautifying the website, making the customer service interactions better. I do customer service in my own way. So there's no easy way to explain to people why service is important. I think if they're not somebody who's worked in a team that's called customer service, ask them questions about when they got really bad service, and then say, so why does customer service matter? And they'll realize, oh yeah, every time I do an interaction with somebody, I expect good service. And why does it matter? Because when I leave angry, at the grocery store or something, customer service matters. If it's that small, right, it matters.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And the massive part of this is helping change people's mindsets. So they don't think of customer service and customer experience as a cost, but they think of it as an investment into the relationship with the customer. So moving on from that, what was the most surprising thing that you experienced when working with Zappos?
I mean, I would say the most surprising thing was that they did what they said they did. So when I went to the job fair and I was told about the culture, I was told about the customer service, and I had actually never shopped with Zappos before then. And then I took the job, or I got the job, I should say. And I really was waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? No pun intended. But I was waiting for them to say, okay, you've been here for 3 months, and now you're going to go to the B building, and where it's just going to be like every other job, and it's work, work, work. And as I waited and waited for this insanely open, fun environment where my opinion was appreciated, I waited for it to go away, and it never did. And so that was the most surprising thing to me was when you become a part of Zappos. From day one, they actually expect you to be a part of Zappos and to do your best to point things out that could be changed, that could be different, to bring up ideas, new things that we've never ever thought of. Bring it up because it might be the thing we're looking for. And you're now a part of enhancing what Zappos does. And for a brand like Zappos, that has been kind of looked at as one of the big ones for culture and one of the big ones for customer service, what Zappos understands is that it's not secret sauce inside of the company of Zappos. that makes this happen. It's allowing people to make it happen.
So it seems like the walking of the walk was quite surprising, which realistically, when we think about it, that's quite bad. It's a bad sort of commentary on the way that companies are at the moment. So to go into a company and they say, hey, this is how we're going to be, and then they are like it, that was the most surprising thing. That's good on Zappos, bad on other people. So, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here now. What was your least favorite thing about working at Zappos?
So, I mean, I think, to be honest, a lot of change, and change is a core value. So obviously I expected it going in. I think the amount of large scale change was my least favorite thing. I think before we got settled into a change that had just happened, they were talking about a change that was coming up. And so for me, especially near the end, back in the third quarter of last year, when I looked at, is it the right thing for me to go independent? Is the right thing for me to leave this amazing company and with people that I love? There was more change coming down the line, and I just feel, I think that people do change too. So for me, it was trying to grasp large change when you hadn't quite settled into the last large change, and over the course of 10 years, that does become a bit tiring.
Okay, I get that, and of course the reason for the constant change is, as we know, customers are changing all of the time. Technology is changing all of the time. We, as people that buy things, are evolving and advancing every single day, and our expectations are changing every single day. So, of course, the reason for the change is to try and keep up with this customer demand. So, thinking of that customer focus, that incredible customer focus that Zappos has, what's your favorite story from Zappos that encompasses that insane customer focus?
Oh, there's so many stories. I think back to my first 4 weeks or 3 weeks of training at Zappos, and you get plugged in to listen to an experienced call center rep, and that's part of the way that they teach you the empowerment part of the autonomous part of that job, is that you get to do what you feel is right. The only way you can teach empowerment is to show people that it's real. So you get plugged in and you're listening to calls, and sometimes it's, hey, I got this shoe in a size 9, I need to get in a 9.5. They process the exchange. They're very pleasant, but there's nothing that just makes you go, okay, that was really cool. And then we got a call, and it was a mother calling for her younger son, and he was looking for a specific hoodie. And this hoodie, when you pulled the hood up, I think it had like a dinosaur or something on it. It was her eldest son's favorite hoodie, favorite sweater, and he had passed away, and she was looking for one for her younger son. Don't cry now, James. It's okay.
So, I'm not crying. You're crying.
Almost over here. So the representative found out that the item had been out of stock. It had been discontinued. There was no way that we could sell her one from Zappos. But that's the great thing, is it wasn't this idea of customer service isn't make sure you sell them something from Zappos. She went and she looked on other websites. She was able to find, I don't even know what website, that happened to have one left in the right size of this perfect sweater, and was able to tell the lady, we don't have it for you here at Zappos, but here's where it is. You can go get it from these guys. And so at the end of the call, and it was actually myself and another trainee plugged into the same person, and we were both just like, oh my gosh, right? And we know what it means for business. We didn't make a sale on this call, right? But oh my gosh, the impact that call had. The impact that it had on the person who took the call, the two people that were listening in as trainees, the customer, and her daughter, or her son. It was amazing. And to think that Zappos wasn't going to slap this person on the wrist for sending them to another website. That was what we were supposed to do in that situation. The idea was make sure they get what they're looking for. And in this case, there's so much more tied into what they're looking for. It's not just the perfect dress for that school dance. In this case, it was something to remember your older brother by. That story is never going to leave. But everybody that works there has so many different stories. I would be remiss to even try to rank them with the best customer service story, because I think we all just celebrate when anybody shares a story like that, where it was like, I was able to help in this way, and that's why we do what we do.
I mean, what do you say about that? So, do you think that would have been possible, or do you think it would have happened if it wasn't for the culture at Zappos?
I don't think so. I think in a lot of cases when it comes to, especially like you're looking at retail customer service, if they're looking for a product that we don't have, you point them to something we do have that's similar. You know what I mean? So the whole idea of shifting and upselling or shifting and cross-selling, but it's just not there because, again, it's not a customer service department. It's the customer loyalty team. And I can guarantee you that wherever we sent that lady to find that hoodie, the next time she needs anything, she's also going to be like, oh my gosh, that person at Zappos was so helpful. So it doesn't matter that she went to this other website to find that product. What's actually going to happen for the company is we did the right thing, and the right thing's going to pay off for us.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it does come down to that interaction being an investment in the relationship with the customer, not a cost to the business. So look, I mean, you spent 10 years at Zappos and you managed to gain a hell of a lot of wisdom while you were there. But if you could only pass on one piece of wisdom from the time that you spent at Zappos to somebody who's looking to deliver a rock star customer experience, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Again, no pun intended. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. So understand that you are a customer in certain situations. Now they're your customer. How would you want to be treated? How would you want the situation to be handled? And it doesn't mean give them the world, give them everything. But what kind of respect do you think that you would want to get from somebody? Give them that kind of respect. Look for solutions because that's what you would want somebody to do for you.
I think that's pretty much perfect. And if people watching, if that's all they take away from this, then hopefully they're going to be delivering a far better customer experience than before. So people listening to this might say, well, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. You focus on your culture, you focus on your people, and then in return, they'll focus on your customers. What's one of your customer experience beliefs or culture beliefs that's kind of counterintuitive, that's a little bit crazy, that's a little bit controversial? So, for example, one of mine is, I don't think you should ask customers what they want, which is a crazy, controversial thing. And I could explain it, but I won't. But that's a controversial opinion in the customer experience world. What's your most controversial opinion when it comes to customer service, customer experience, and culture?
The customer is not always right. No, the customer is always the customer. And therefore, they need, again, that respect. They need you to look for solutions. But the customer doesn't necessarily know what's behind everything, how everything really works. So when you get to like the customer doesn't need to know your processes, your policies, but you do. And so what you need to do is, with respect, help explain the policies, how things are going to work. Look for a positive solution. Look for a solution that isn't what they're asking you for. Because for Zappos, that's the wow, going above and beyond what's expected. Now, to do that, you really have to listen. You have to listen to their entire complaint, no matter how long they want to complain, because in that you'll find the gold. And the gold is what's really behind this complaint. So the customer isn't always right. The customer is always the customer. They deserve that respect. Your job should be to look to wow them because you've paid enough attention, you've listened, and you really understand what it is that they need from your company.
All right, that's perfect. I mean, I'm not sure we can be friends after this because that is so controversial that I think I'm going to have to distance myself from you.
We'll put a little water between us.
Yeah, give it a couple of months and I'll... All right, so we've been talking a lot about Zappos and about how their focus on culture helps deliver amazing customer experience. So who else out there do you feel is delivering amazing customer experience by focusing on their culture?
So I mean, from what I know, and I'm going to go right back to the music world, but Sweetwater.com, they're an online retailer that sells all this good stuff, and but it's not just another catalog company. They're people, so they actually assign you a salesperson. So every time you reach out, you can talk to the same person, and that person will. It's kind of creepy, but that person will actually look at your viewing history. And they can even reach out and say, hey, I see you're looking at guitar combo amps, or you're looking at new PA speakers. and they'll help you through that process because they know the product. So they're musicians themselves. They know the product. If you go to their website, by the way, you can probably take a tour and see their values, which is pretty cool to think that, you know, a musical instrument catalog company has their values posted. And I've actually had a chance to go to their campus in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and visit. And it was very much like if Zappos ran a musical instrument catalog company. Like, it just had that kind of same feel. It was very free and opening. They had a space that you could go and blow off some steam, you know, whether it was playing music or other stuff. So they understood the value of letting people get away from the computer screen when they need to. But as a customer, it's always the best experience I've ever had ordering equipment is through Sweetwater. Another one that does a great job is Reverb.com. And Reverb.com is actually, they're a marketplace, really. So Reverb doesn't really sell products, but anybody like me or you could sell items through Reverb.com to other musicians. But they just do a really good job with their communications platforms and things like that, connecting potential buyers or sellers, and trying to work to resolve issues between them. So, and then another one, a really cool story actually, years ago, see if I have any with me. Years ago, I went to order custom guitar picks because you reach a certain age where you have, you know, at least a little bit of disposable income, and you say, what have I always wanted? And that's a guitar pick with my band name on it, right? Nice. And so I ordered for my old band, actually, for Bo Hodges' band, I ordered picks right before Christmas, and I wanted to give them to the rest of my band as a Christmas present. I didn't read, because, you know, customers don't necessarily read the screen, and the material that I had picked for these guitar picks was going to take like 3 weeks to print. And they said, well, this is 2 weeks before Christmas. And they even emailed me proactively, is this a Christmas present? If it's a Christmas present, we can't get it to you in time. If you want to go in and change the material, let us know. And it was that easy. I responded back with the new material. I was like, man, thanks so much for catching that. Here's the new material, send. And at Christmas time, I got to give my band custom-made guitar picks with the band logo on it. And that was a relatively smaller company, but they noticed, they paid attention, right? You know what's important. The weeks before Christmas, what's important? Christmas. And they said, we should probably reach out to this person to make sure that if this is intended to be a Christmas present, that he's able to get it in time. And they did that for me. I didn't read the screen. When I went back and read the screen after the email, I went, oh man, it's right there on the screen that this material takes 3 weeks. So instead of saying, hey, John, you're dumb, which is really what happened, they said, hey, we want to make sure this is right for you. And then let's go forward. So that was Clayton Customs. Clayton Custom Picks. They were amazing.
I will check them out. So, acid test. If anybody ever tells you they are a guitar player, say to them, oh, have you got a plectrum on you? And then, so for Jim Dunlop Rhodes, if they don't, they're not a real guitar player. So the neat thing about that is, so when those guys got in touch with you to say, hey, look, is this a Christmas present? If it is, it's not going to get you in time. They didn't say, hey, you're a dumbass.
Right.
You need to change the thing. But chances are that wasn't like a systemized way of them doing work. Chances are that wasn't a process they were following. Chances are there was sort of just an overarching understanding of whether it be doing the right thing or whatever it is. So obviously they've got to focus on the customer, and obviously they've got a culture of empowerment where people can do that. They can reach out, but we're pretty much all in agreement that focusing on culture and focusing on customer experience is a good strategy. But within customer experience, what do you think the best strategy is?
It goes back to listening. I think the best possible thing you can do with a customer, whether they want to tell you how great the company is or how bad things have gone for them, is really listen. And I think that in a lot of cases, we're trained, maybe not trained specifically by a company, but as human beings, to listen for keywords. We hear the red flags and we react. And so you're explaining to me this awful situation and why it's so bad, and I think I know how to fix it because you said a few words that I really can cling on to. And so before you're really done, I find some kind of a pause or break in your conversation, and I start fixing it the wrong way. So what happens to that interaction, especially if you're on a call and you're not face to face and you're not getting necessarily context and other things? You just made that person so much more angry and upset. And the only thing you can do at this point now is backpedal, but you've already cut them off. It's done. You're never going to get that chance back. So I think the best possible tool you can have exists between your two ears. And that's listening and using your brain to go, okay, this is their time right now. And when they are given that time and they don't feel rushed. See, I'm really smart. You see, they aren't felt rushed. they start to calm down and slow down, and they start to really get into the heart of, why is this important to me? Why is it so important that I called angry? And when they're done explaining why they've called angry, you've now really been given the real information you need to apologize if that's what needs to happen, to show empathy, to move on to a resolution that's the right resolution, not just a reactionary resolution. So
best customer experience strategy is just to listen. It's so simple, but it's so powerful and so effective. We did get a comment. Who was that company again with the plectrums, or the picks, as you call
them? The picks. That is Steve Clayton Customs, or I think it's Clayton Custom USA. Clayton.
Hope you got that. Right, okay, so are there any companies out there at the moment that you've been particularly impressed with their transformation from quite crappy customer experience to rockstar customer experience?
So I'm going to have to say, unfortunately, I haven't noticed any. But again, that's not necessarily, it's more probably just that my bar for service is so high. So I think where I've seen the biggest change is in the healthcare, actually. The industry of healthcare in the US is almost, I believe, at a tipping point where they're getting into the mindset that service matters. And in the US, that's not been the mindset for a lot of people. And obviously, I'm not talking for everybody in healthcare. But when I see some of the healthcare names coming through, that if you were in the US, you'd see them and go, okay, cool. They're asking questions about this too. They're getting their people together to talk about what could be better. It shines kind of a neat light on the future of healthcare in the US. So there have been a couple that I've worked with in the last couple of years. And you can, I hate to say this, by the way, so if you're a future speech client, don't take this the wrong way, but you can tell when the organization you're speaking to is sincere about making the right change. When the people that are there at the session are really on fire to make the right change. And you can tell when you're going and you're giving a presentation to an organization that's not going to do anything, but they're going to check it off. Now, all right, we had that customer service expert come in, check, and then things don't change. And so in the 10 years that I was with Zappos, I saw a lot of great companies that you could tell were absolutely on fire to make real change happen.
Okay, and I think healthcare is a good example of one of those industries where people don't really have a choice; they have to use it. And so for a long time, the experience hasn't really mattered very much. Kind of the same with banking, kind of the same with airlines. For such a long time, people have been getting pretty crappy experiences because you really don't have a choice. But people are starting to progress now and realize, hang on a second, if I want to pull away from the pack, if I want to be different, if I want to differentiate myself, then the products and services we're delivering are pretty much all the same. It's the way that we deliver them that's the differentiator. So that's a great thing. So look, if you were starting out on your customer experience, customer service journey again, what would you do differently?
I think I wouldn't look at customer service as like a job to take to get into a company to get health insurance. At this point, like even as the commenter mentioned, everybody does service. I think that I realize that now that if I were to start over again, I would look to see how I could best enhance an organization's customer service, best inspire their people to think about service as important as it is. And then, I mean, really, I can't help go into any organization and try to make change happen now. So that's just hardwired from my time at Zappos.
Perfect. I think that's it's probably a. But the decision, it was a, as you say, a happy accident. Channeling the spirit of Bob Ross there. I don't know if you know Bob Ross. Do you know who Bob Ross?
Oh yeah. Put a happy little tree over here.
There we go. Thank you. So okay, like a little birdie, you told me that you've got a book coming out soon. So I want to know a little bit more about this book. What's it called? What can we expect in the book? And when we can get hold of this book?
The when's going to be a big question because I'm still just jotting down all the ideas as they come. But the book is going to be called Changing Your Approach. And it's going to be essentially breaking down 5 areas that are important in looking towards making a better future for your company. So better futures is the word that I'm going to essentially. There's no perfect future. My better future is not the same as your better future. But it really takes a look at it, instead of siloing and saying culture, right? And a lot of companies say we need to get the culture right, but they really haven't got a strong purpose statement. They don't know why they do what they do. They certainly haven't read, Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. So there's purpose at the heart of everything, with culture being, I would say, next in importance if I had to rank them. And then you have engagement and motivation. And that's for your people. Why do they stay with your brand? Are they motivated to make your brand better? Are they motivated to do their work the best that they can? Then you have the happiness, which is a great topic, right? And people love to hear about happiness. But happiness, I think, really should be mixed with well-being, people's well-being. Are you taking care of the person? And so this is not to get too, West Coast U.S. Hippie on you, but like, are you really caring for the whole person? Because if you do, they're going to give so much more back. And then last, the fifth aspect is processes. When you talk about making change, do you actually have the systems in place, or can you make your systems work to allow great things to happen? And I think we're all so locked into the technology that we have that sometimes it's directly fighting against our purpose. And we haven't even ever thought to say, well, if we went to a different system, it would actually help us live our purpose better and make a better future.
Brilliant. Well, I can't wait to read it. I'm sure you'll send me a preview copy. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Of course. And look, so how can people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on all the usual suspects. So LinkedIn, I love to connect on LinkedIn. I love to connect on Facebook. So Jon Wolske Speaker on Facebook. You can go to jonwolske.com, and that's my website with all sorts of great pictures of me. So I love it. Trying to think where else. Really, Instagram is kind of my personal, but you can follow Jon Wolske on Instagram as well, on Twitter. So again, just the usual suspects. I'm on Snapchat, but I don't really snap that much because, as you can tell, I'm a little older. But you can find me there.
Yeah, I don't really understand Snapchat as well. Well, look, guys, make sure to check in the description because Jon's links are going to be in there. So if you do want to connect with him, make sure to do that. Make sure to drop him a line saying thank you so much for his time today. Look, before we wrap up, if you want to learn the tools, the techniques, the mindsets, and the methodologies that Zappos and some of the world's other most customer-centric companies are using, then make sure to join me in Orlando on the 26th of March and become an accredited customer experience master. Check the link in the description to find out some more information, or drop me an email at james@jamesdodkins.com. So one last massive thank you to Jon. One last massive thank you to everybody tuning in today. And until next time, keep giving your customer experience. So your dog threw me off, man. Let's go back to Jon. What's that about, man? Is that your dog?
It's Angus, yeah.
What type of dog is it?
He's a mix. He's a mutt.
Oh, you say like it's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Show me the dog.
Come on, Angus. He's not supposed to come up usually. Come here.
Come on, Angus.
Angus, come up here, bud. Angus. Good boy.
Is he named after the AC/DC guitarist or the Beef?
He's not really. He's named after the Celtic god of love. We got him for Valentine's Day.
Fair enough.
But we do have a cat named Telly, and then we have an orange cat named Crusher. So Telly like the Telecaster, and then Crusher like the Orange Crush guitar amps.
There you go. Proper heavy metal family.
That's right.
John, we're done. Thank you again. Massive thank you for everybody joining in. And until next time, keep giving your customers that rockstar customer experience.
You've been tuned into ROCKSTAR CX. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.